This week on LTC News, fishing on the Merrimack.
Fish consumption should be monitored carefully.
Protest quilts.
There's a long-standing history of politics in quilts.
And keeping baseball honest. Stay with us. Welcome to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Alanna Flood. Fishing is very popular up and down the beautiful Merrimack River. Here at LTC, we want to make sure that people know that the fish are contaminated with mercury and that catch and release is the way to go. To clarify, we spoke with Rusty Russell, Executive Director of the Merrimack River Watershed Council.
We're the guardians of the entire Merrimack River. It's 125 miles long and it faces a lot of environmental challenges even in this day and age. And we're advocates who try to make sure the river gets cleaner and becomes more inviting to the public, including some of the fishers we're seeing today. One thing that fishers should know is that a very large part of the Merrimack, as well as other waters around it, are contaminated with mercury, essentially the heavy metal neurotoxin mercury. And so it is not safe to eat large amounts of fish from many parts of the Merrimack, basically from the Lawrence Dam at least up to the New Hampshire border and actually beyond, have state mercury advisories issued for them, which means that fish consumption should be monitored carefully. It's much better to catch and release, but for children, for pregnant women, eating any number of contaminated fish is a problem. It can impair the development of a healthy brain, and it's thought that even today, 75,000 children across the United States are to some extent impaired by ingestion of mercury at a time when they were most vulnerable. This used to be one of the 10 most polluted rivers in the United States. It was a disaster area.
I've been fishing this river for 25 years. It certainly is a lot cleaner than it was many years ago. And fish have come back. We've caught northern pike today, which we haven't caught northern pike in, 20 years.
It's actually swimmable in some parts, some days, many days actually, but there are times when raw sewage is also dumped into the river by several sewage treatment systems up and down the river, so we have to be aware of that as well. But no, the river is much cleaner thanks in large part to two things: the Clean Water Act, which is a federal act that was put in its modern form in 1972, and also citizen advocacy in communities up and down the Merrimack made a big difference in getting this river a lot cleaner. The bulk of the mercury that is in the environment and in the river environment here comes from fossil fuel-fired power plants, mainly coal-fired power plants upwind, and upwind is pretty much everywhere from here, because we're at the end of the tailpipe in New England. It's converted in waters and in the ground to a chemical derivative of mercury called methylmercury. And this is taken up very easily through the food chain and into higher mammals and animals like fish. And it just sits there until it reaches us. That kind of bioaccumulation is the danger, and it's not something you would get swimming or boating, but you would get it eating too many fish from the river.
At one time, I was someone who ate the fish, but I don't eat them anymore. I've learned my lesson.
Please spread the word to people you know who fish in the Merrimack about this important information. And now, Brian Dorrington, LTC Director of Municipal Programming, brings us his City Council Synopsis.
Hello and welcome to the City Council Synopsis for the meeting of July 25th, 2017. I'd like to start by thanking Alanna Flood for filling in for me while I was away on a business trip. She did a wonderful job, but I'm glad to be back delivering essential information along with non-essential graphics just to kill some time. and Kimbang, along with other members of Lowell's Southern Cameroonian community, presented the council with a letter from the Secretary General of Southern Cameroon. In the letter, the Secretary General thanked the council for their resolution expressing support for a sovereign Republic of South Cameroon. The council's resolution also criticized the Cameroonian government for its human rights violations against those in southern Cameroon. City Manager Kevin Murphy provided a report on an event that took place on June 21st, which marketed the Hamilton Canal Innovation District as a place for economic development. 127 people attended the event, including Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, Secretary of Housing and Economic Development Jay Ash, President of the University of Massachusetts Marty Meehan, along with many developers and investors. Manager Murphy reported a number of developers expressed interest, and he is confident the HCID will have a new master developer by the August 11th submission deadline. Things got heated when councilors Elliott and Mercier presented a motion asking the administration to look into reducing the burden of the cost of the new high school for senior citizens and residents on a fixed income. Councilor Milanazzo suggested that councilors Elliott and Mercier are being hypocritical and are just pandering for votes since they voted for the Colley option, which is more expensive than any of the downtown options. Councilor Milanazzo also said he believes Councilor Mercier should exempt herself because she herself is of the protected class of senior citizen. Councilor Mercier defended herself, suggesting that Councilor Milanazzo is wrong in his belief that she is just presenting this motion for votes. She challenged Councilor Milanazzo to run again and implied she believes he would lose if he did. Councilor Elliott defended himself as well and criticized Councilor Milanazzo for his personal attacks. Well, that's all I have for you today. Remember, you can watch the meetings in their entirety on LTC Channel 99 or on demand anytime at ltc.org. Thanks for watching and be swell.
There's a powerful art exhibition that's going on right now at the New England Quilt Museum on Shattuck Street downtown. Threads of Resistance is all about protesting the political landscape of the current presidential administration, and the show's organizers were inundated with entry applications from around the world.
Sitting quietly along the cobblestones at the corner of Middle and Shattuck Streets is an absolute hidden gem.
The New England Quilt Museum plays a very important role in the cultural vitality not only of Lowell itself, but of the entire New England region.
The New England Quilt Museum is a fiber art destination, and along with a permanent collection that includes antique and historical quilts, the museum has a variety of exhibits running throughout the year.
We're proud to be an institution that not only exhibits and educates, but also preserves that art.
Earlier this year, a small group of artists called the Artist Circle Alliance had the idea to channel some of the frustrations they were feeling about the new presidential administration into an exhibit of protest quilts.
And then we decided that, we couldn't have been the only ones thinking and feeling the way we were. So we decided to put the call out as a general call to the public to see if we could get some additional interest from other art quilters out there to see if they wanted to participate in putting together an exhibit about the current White House administration and policies that we were struggling with.
They didn't know yet where they were going to hold the exhibit, but they sent out the call for art.
And I think it was maybe 30 minutes later, I got an email from Pam Weeks.
I went, we have to have this show. I spoke to Nora. I said, I can take out an exhibit that's scheduled. May I contact Sue? And she said, yes, go for it.
We were thrilled. We jumped right on it and said, please premiere it here. We'd love to have it open.
They received over 550 submissions from across the country and around the world.
It was a clear indication to us that we were not alone in the way that we were feeling about what was happening in the country.
What was striking to me about the submissions from all over the world were how important the United States is and this presidency has become as an international topic.
When we first went out with the call, we got, I got a lot of angry emails from people saying that the subject of politics doesn't belong in quilts, and quilts are supposed to be warm and fuzzy, and there's no place for this sort of thing in the quilting world. And that's fine, you know, they're entitled to their opinion, but we were pretty quick to point out that there's a long-standing history of politics in quilts.
Protest or social commentary has been used in quilt making by women with very little other way to express their opinions for almost 200 years.
Off to the side, there's a special room to show the few quilts that have been deemed inappropriate for children.
And my hope is that no matter what side you're on and what your political stances are, that you can at least appreciate the artistry and the mastery of techniques that have been used in creating these quilts.
We're very glad to be in downtown Lowell, to have such a diverse community. We think our exhibitions reflect that diversity, and we continue to welcome and invite everybody to come and learn a little bit more about quilt art and quilting in general. I think people are always surprised when they come in.
Caroline Gallagher, LTC News.
Since the organizers knew from the beginning that the exhibition would travel around the country, they had to whittle down the 550 entries to just over 60. Threads of Resistance is open through September 9th, and then will visit 12 cities around the country over the next year. All of the 550 original entries can be viewed online at threadsofresistance.com. You probably didn't know that Lowell is a major hub of baseball innovation and engineering for the big leagues. The Baseball Research Center at UMass Lowell was founded in 1999 with the purpose of maintaining the integrity of sport through science. For 18-plus years, the professors and students of the Bat Cave have been the official test site for the major leagues, the NCAA, and the high school levels. LTC News intern Zach Perry met with the assistant director of the lab, Patrick Drain.
So the Baseball Research Center is a research lab within the Mechanical Engineering Department at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. Primarily, we look at things from a sports engineering, from a mechanics, equipment standpoint. Dr. James Sherwood founded the lab. We've had a relationship with Major League Baseball since the beginning. They helped provide the initial funding for the lab. And the story that we often tell that really was the catalyst for the lab existing was back in 1998, the College World Series ended in a score of 21-14 with 17 home runs hit. And that is not what people consider the game of baseball. The bigger factor in play was the fact that the bats, when they're higher performing, it really changes the characteristics. It changes the balance between offense and defense.
Using game-like conditions, the Research Center set out to level the playing field of bats and balls through performance testing. Major League Baseball and the Baseball Research Center believe equipment, including balls and bats, should be a fixed variable, meaning that they all perform with the same effects. No piece of equipment should cause superior performance no matter how it is made or what it is made of.
We use finite element analysis as a tool for simulating and understanding the characteristics that go into the bat breakage, so we can understand actually what's going on in there. What are the stresses? What are the strains that dictate how the bat's going to hold up? So this is a two-wheel jugs pitching machine. What we do is we basically fire the ball in, so then we get the velocity coming out of the light gates that are over here that allow us to measure the inbound and rebound speed very accurately.
This machine simulates exit velocity, or a ball's speed immediately after being hit. The ball is shot at a thick concrete wall, and velocities are measured for consistency of each simulated hit. Every ball should perform equally and consistently.
The velocities here are actually replicating higher velocities that you'd see in the field. In 2000, Major League Baseball was sort of hit by questions related to ball performance and the quote-unquote juiced ball. Major League Baseball came to the university and said, can you do anything to help determine if we have an issue with the ball and what is the ball performance? So the Baseball Research Center then received baseballs from 1999 and from 2000 to evaluate the comparison between those, and ultimately found that there was no difference in performance. And that really was the start of us working with Major League Baseball on looking at the ball. They wanted to be better prepared and have a better understanding and independent review of the ball on a more periodic basis. So we get in baseballs a few times during the season. We do a lot of tests on those balls, whether it be the performance of the ball, the size, the weight. We dissect the ball layer by layer, peeling it like an orange. Definitely through scientific data, a lot of our work has been around maintaining that integrity of the game, maintaining the balance between offense and defense, and that really is an important element. We've been able to assist the leagues with the scientific understanding that's necessary for those rules to be implemented properly.
The lab's testing has concluded that the various pieces of equipment perform equally, and the league utilizes the lab to ensure it stays that way. In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with Steve Gendron to talk about his decision to step down from the school committee.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise Editor at The Sun. Thanks for tuning into this week's edition of Sunspot. With me is a well-known name in Lowell City politics, school committee member Steve Gendron. Steve Gendron, thank you for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure.
Our calendars didn't quite match. We've been working on this for a couple of weeks, but I'm glad we're finally able to get together.
Here we are.
All right. Steve, you have some news to tell us about your political aspirations, or maybe I should say right now lack thereof, because you've got some professional commitments. Tell us about the big decision that you've come to.
Okay, Chris, so I've decided not to run for school committee again.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, I have some professional demands that are creating a conflict for me. My professional life is actually taking an uptick, and being asked to travel a lot more and get involved in a lot more accounts in my work. So I've decided that I don't want to create a conflict with the school committee, and I'll be stepping down. That, coupled with the fact that, I think 2 terms is enough.
Mm-hmm.
I did 2 terms in the city council. I served on the planning board for 8 years. I served on the library trustees board for 8 years. I now have done 2 terms on the school committee. And I've always looked at this as a way for me to do public service, community service to the city, more than
that's refreshing.
More than a political aspiration for me. It's really been a way for me to give back to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And in that light, I think I've done my 2 terms, and I'm going to move on to something else.
Steve, the company you work for is called Cadence Design Systems, right?
That's correct.
And it's based out of Chelmsford?
It's actually headquartered in San Jose, California.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But we have a center in Chelmsford with about 250 people.
And what does Cadence Design Systems do, and what do you do for the company?
Cadence Design Systems is an electronic design automation software provider. So it's CAD software for the electronics industry. So anybody who's designing a chip that goes in a cell phone or goes in a computer would need our software to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done everything for the company. I've been with them for 25 years. I started as an
That's
engineer.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Started as an engineer. I became an engineering manager. I went into marketing, but most recently, for the past 15 years, I've been selling for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I sell the software that we design to engineers
mm-hmm.
all over the world.
Mm-hmm. I've been trying to get you on the show now for about a month, and you said your professional commitments are just you're just too busy. Where are some of the places that you travel to? Is it international travel or national travel?
It's mostly national.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly national. I go to California a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I go to Washington, D.C. A lot of the customers that I deal with have Department of Defense contracts, so I need to go there to meet with them.
Mm-hmm.
I also traveled to Asia. I've been to Taiwan, been to Shanghai, and occasionally to Europe. So there's quite a fair amount of travel. I've had to miss a few meetings
mm-hmm.
in recent weeks,
mm-hmm.
so I've decided that it's just time to step down. I've also had a family wedding.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations!
To deal with. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
which son is this now?
My oldest son, Stephen.
Stephen, with a V or a PH?
With a PH.
Mm-hmm.
Married Erin Muldowney,
mm-hmm.
and so they're happily married now, living on my attic.
Living in Lowell, in your attic. Was this a difficult decision for you, Steve, or was it fairly obvious with your professional life that you just couldn't do it, couldn't do both?
It's always a difficult decision. I feel like that I've been able to contribute a lot in the school committee. I feel like this school committee's done a really good job. But I never entered into this thinking that it was going to be, a lifelong pursuit. I kind of look at this, as I mentioned, as a way to do community service. I served on the city council for 2 years, for 2 terms. Same thing here on the school committee. And I've been a term limits guy from way back when. I believe in term limits at all levels in government. I don't know if you remember, but back in the mid-90s, we actually had a binding referendum passed that made term limits the law of the land for a few short years, and until another binding referendum changed it back again. But that was all because of my impetus back in the 90s.
So your last term on the school committee, particularly the last couple weeks or the last couple months, have been, I think, an understatement to say that a little turbulent, particularly as they relate to the high school.
Right.
You've been a vocal opponent of the Colley Stadium site. You want to keep the high school downtown. Can you tell us the reasons, again, that you feel that way, and why you feel so strongly that there ought to be a referendum as well to try to maybe once and for all settle this very divisive issue?
Right. Well, I'd refer to myself as a proponent for the downtown.
Proponent, right? Yeah, that was an awkward way of saying it. Yep. Yeah.
But I really believe that if we're going to have one high school in the city of Lowell, it ought to be centrally located. Lowell, this Lowell High School is the second largest high school in Massachusetts. It's among the top 100 high schools in America. It's a huge high school, and I think that it's the most equitable location, it's the most fair location, it's the most efficient location if we're going to have just a single high school. It's equidistant to all the neighborhoods in the city. And I think that it just makes more sense if we're going to have one high school, that it ought to be centrally located and easy to access for everybody.
You live in the neighborhood where right now it's going to be in Colley Stadium. You live on Clark Road.
Right.
Did that figure into your decision at all? The NIMBY issue, or you just didn't want? Because there were some people who feel, and it's hard. You can see where they're coming from, to take a real big building and put it out there.
Right.
But was that your?
That wasn't really my primary focus, Chris. It was more about the fairness of a central location. It's about less about the neighborhood, right? But I also say the other thing I wanted to mention is the fields. We have a great sports complex out there at Colley Stadium. We're going to be losing that to this new high school there, so that creates a big problem for us as well. But from a neighborhood perspective, I don't think it's wrong for people who live in that neighborhood to stand up and say, hey, I'm concerned about the impact of this development on my neighborhood. I spent 8 years on the planning board, and people came down every meeting to talk about the impact of development in their neighborhood, and they have a right to do that. And
it's a real issue for those folks,
we need
isn't it?
people who want to protect their neighborhoods. So I think it's very wrong to call people names or to slander people because they want to stand up and protect their neighborhood and they're concerned about the impact. We're talking about a 4,000 person institution right in the neighborhood. We're talking about 800 cars a day. We're talking about hundreds of bus trips a day. I mean, there's going to be a huge impact on that neighborhood.
Your comment, it's very wrong, excuse me, to call people names or slander. I don't think you chose those words lightly, because that's precisely what's happened in this debate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Have you ever seen anything like this in all your years on the library trustees, the planning board, the city council? There's been some big fights in the city, and you and I are aware of them. But boy, this one has just taken on a whole life of its own.
The closest thing I can remember is the arena debate.
Right.
You know, and I thought that would have been the biggest political debate that I would be part of in my career. But this has overtaken that. The arena, when you think back, the arena was a $28 million project for both the arena and the ballpark, and the city's contribution to that was $4 million. And there was a huge battle over whether or not we should invest $4 million in building the arena and the ballpark, and I say thank God we did. So when I look back on that, I'm very happy with what we accomplished there. But this, we're talking about $150 million.
Total cost, right, to play that out, total cost of about $350 million, right?
Right.
And the city contribution about $150 million thereabouts.
Right. So this is...
Boy, those arena and ballpark numbers look pretty small.
Are dwarfed by what we're talking about here. So this is a huge investment, but it's an investment in the future of our city. It's the investment in the children in our community. So we absolutely have to do it. I'm actually encouraged by the fact that the debate is about where should it go and not should we do
Right.
it. Because I fully thought that's where this debate would be going, should we do it? But it's encouraging in some ways to see it's about where it should go.
Where do you think it's headed? The Sun has a story on page 1 today. It's July 18th about the mayor and Salah Khalfawi, the superintendent, sending a letter to the School Building Assistance Bureau, just making sure that they know about the school committee vote, which was heavily in favor of keeping the high school downtown.
Right.
Now, what motivation do you think that those two officials possibly had in sending that letter?
Well,
and did you know that they were sending it as a member of the school committee?
I did know that the mayor was going to send a letter to the MSBA.
Did he notify all committee members of that?
I don't know if he notified, but
Okay.
I did hear.
But you
from
knew,
him.
okay.
I did hear from him that he was going to send that letter, and I think he just wanted to inform them, make sure they knew of the committee's stance, because there is some debate about whether or not the committee should have final say over approving that location. My feeling, Chris, is that we should put it on the ballot. I've never seen a more divisive issue in the history of Lowell. The only way to heal this city is to put the question on the ballot. Let the people make the choice. Let's not, let the dentists influence the situation. Let's not let the neighborhood influence the situation. Let's let the whole city take a look at all of the issues here, all of the parameters of the decision, and make a choice. And then we can go forward.
You made a pretty good argument, I thought, in favor of the referendum during that last school committee meeting. Maybe you could just refresh the minds of our viewers of precisely what you said. I think you hit on the divisiveness of the issue.
Yeah,
and
it was just that. I've never seen a more divisive issue in the city of Lowell. And if we really want to heal the city, then we should let the people make the choice.
Do you want a binding referendum or a non-binding referendum?
I think binding or non-binding, I think we should agree that whatever the people decide is what we're going to do. The only way we get a binding referendum on there is if the council chooses to do so. If the community comes forth, collects signatures, and gets a question on there, it can only.
And I think that's happening.
Non-binding referendum.
I think that's
there's an effort underway.
In that regard. Now, as a member of the school committee, you wanted the school committee wanted the city council to actually agree to a referendum.
Right.
But they didn't. It didn't.
Yeah, they never even took up the question.
Never even took up the question. Were you mad about that? Or maybe not mad is a poor choice of words, but
I didn't really expect them to act on it, honestly, based on the commentary that I heard in the whole debate. I expected, the 5 councilors that decided that they wanted to move to Cawley to stay that way. But I think I would like them to reconsider. I would like them to think about it and decide that let's end this divisiveness once and for all. It'd only be a few month delay in the process. I don't think that's going to get us into any trouble with the MSBA. And that's what we did on the arena, if you recall. Back then, we had a referendum on, and it passed.
In terms of,
we ended up going forward with that.
Excuse me for interrupting. In terms of reconsidering, is there anything that you're going to try to do as a school committee member or the school committee as a whole to push that? I know there was a communication that went to the council last week from the mayor saying that, hey, we voted for you guys to put a referendum on, but it didn't go anywhere. The mayor didn't even push it because he knew the votes weren't there.
Right.
What else can you do in that regard?
I don't know that there's anything else we can do as a committee other than appeal to the MSBA, which we've done, the mayor has done, and encourage this effort in the community, which I plan to do. I think having a ballot question on the ballot in November, asking the people how they feel about the location is the way to go, and I hope that the council would react to it one way or another.
I don't think it's over yet, do you?
I don't. No, I don't. I think the discussion will continue, and I think it can continue. And people are worried, or say they're worried about the fact that we don't want to blow this opportunity, and we don't. I would rather have a high school at Cawley Stadium than no high school. That's my first stance. But I think we have some time. I think it's okay for us to vet this out and think about it. And I think the MSBA will realize that. This is the biggest school project they've ever done. They are not sitting back thinking, oh, this is going to breeze right through and there aren't going to be any issues or questions in Lowell about this.
Steve, unfortunately, we're out of time. I'd like to continue this conversation.
Let's go so quickly, Chris.
I appreciate you coming in. Plus, you had news to give us, and thanks for sharing that. Good luck.
That's it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 8 and 99, on the web at ltc.org, or get the link each week on Facebook. I'm Alanna Flood. Thanks for joining us.